Many games have given us brilliant additional content that has been well worth the money. It's very much your mileage may vary a lot of the time, but there is plenty of objectionably good DLC packs. And on the flip side, plenty which are outright mistakes and rightfully despised. In this list, we'll be looking at DLC choices for video games that the fans would not let pass. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video game DLCs fans rejected. Number 10. Paying for an extra save slot. Metal Gear Survive. The games to come on this list are all of varying quality, but it's fair to say that Metal Gear Survive is the entry where the franchise's fans outright rejected the entire product. After Hideo Kojima left Konami and the company forged on with his IP, it was bound to be a disaster, and that's before adding in base building elements and zombies. Metal Gear Survive is not much of a Metal Gear game, and more to the point, it's Konami at their most Konami. Nowhere can this be seen better than the game's save slot DLC controversy. It's one thing to ask players to pay for something that was free in previous installments, but an expected feature of any video game that has been a standard for 30 years was outrageous. Most people wouldn't pay for the tragedy that was Survive, let alone a second save slot to play it again, but the gall to even do such a thing couldn't escape mockery. The save slot was priced at 1,000 SV coins, the in-game currency, which could be saved up or naturally bought with real-world money. At an asking price of $10 for those 1,000 points, those that actually bought the game kindly told Konami where to shove it. Number 9. Easy Fatalities. Mortal Kombat 10. When it comes to titles with a strong case for DLC, then fighting games are certainly amongst them. Adding in new stages and characters keeps them fresh, and it's now an expected part of the genre. That being said, it's also a place where some odd experiments and shady practices have taken place. The most famous of Mortal Kombat's quirks is its fatalities. These over-the-top kill animations are a sick reward for players who win their matches and input a tricky code to really rub it in their opponent's face. Mortal Kombat 10 decided to help out players by including easy fatalities, which required 2 simple button pushes. The problem now was that you were embarrassing yourself and not your opponent. Yeah, they're cool, but 20 cents every time to watch an extra animation? These consumable tokens cost $1 for 5, and fans all over the world threw up their hands and said no. Not only was it a greedy mistreatment of the beloved fatality system, it was insulting and frankly ableist. Ed Boon's excuse for this was accessibility for players who struggled with fast, complex inputs, which makes sense, but quite rightfully, everyone had the same reaction. Why charge these people? Unsurprisingly, Mortal Kombat 11 made easy fatalities a toggleable option in the menu, but gamers won't forget this ridiculous misstep. Number 8. Tomb of the Lost Adventurer. Tomb Raider. Pre-order bonuses might be something we as a community need to address. They purely exist to pull players in who can't stand FOMO for the sake of making sure the publishers get those first week sales numbers up. If it's worthwhile, then that's fine, as long as they're at least made available later to all players who may want to jump into them. At least Tomb Raider 2013's reboot did the last part. If you didn't put money down for Lara's latest adventure before release, you could pick up Tomb of the Lost Adventurer for a mere $3. Rest assured that this GameStop pre-order bonus was barely worth half that amount of money. As a single challenge tomb, and not a very interesting or in fact challenging one at that, it takes all of about 5 minutes to finish. That's the same amount of time and money to drink a cup of coffee without the sweet caffeinated benefits, and the coffee actually can't actively stop you from drinking it. By that I mean, not only was the tomb boring, it was also bugged on release, and doing the steps correctly would stop Lara from being able to continue. Ergo, players spent infinitely more time rightfully complaining online about it than actually playing it. Number 7. Shortcut kits. Battlefield 4. Pay-to-win mechanics always inspire the same teeth-baring grimace from gamers, and despite the fact that players are vocal about their distaste for them, they must still sell because it's a service that shows no signs of stopping. Case in point, Battlefield's shortcut kits. These optional add-ons give you access to the full range of different weapons and abilities without, as the name implies, putting any of the work in. They've been a part of Battlefield since Bad Company 2, but picking one egregious example out, Battlefield 4 had 15 packs of different unlocks which you could purchase altogether for $40. Now, it might make you feel like a sneaky genius, but just because you're fully kitted out doesn't mean squat. You'll wander into maps you've never seen before to go up against players who are familiar with their surroundings, loadouts, and the gameplay, since they have put in the time and hard work to rank up. Simply having the best weapons in the game doesn't make you good at the game. One might be giddy with excitement at first, but most most fans realised that if there's no more unlocks to work towards, then there's no incentive to keep playing. Number 6. MCU outfits. Marvel's Avengers. Recently, it was announced that the Square Enix Marvel's Avengers game was coming to the end of its lifespan and that it would no longer be supported. As what was clearly intended as a show of good faith, the company announced that previous cosmetic packs would become free at the end of March. Of course, there's no right time to announce such a thing because you could have just parted ways with cash just a day previous for a costume that will now be free in 2 months' time. Oh wait, that's almost certainly what happened because Crystal Dynamics dropped a costume pack with an asking price of $75 a day before the announcement. The MCU outfits pack makes your Marvel characters look more like the heroes on the silver screen, which was redundant and overpriced as it was. But that it was coming free after dropping at the same price as the base game evoked rage and disappointment from fans. It's not like the developers found out that Square had made these decisions on the same day as us, so they knowingly got players to put down $75 before the announcement. Gamers on the Avengers subreddit called the move an appropriately greedy send-off that defined the game's entire existence. Number 5. Horse Armour. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Microtransactions might sometimes feel like an unavoidable part of the gaming landscape these days, but back in the mid-2000s they were a new concept. At the time, most downloadable content packets were meaty expansions, so the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion deciding to add some smaller morsels really upset the apple cart. The Horse Armour DLC, which allowed you to kit your steed in metal plating, dropped for around $2 in April 2006. Whilst the armour does increase your horse's maximum health, clearly this is more aimed at being showy rather than practicality, which is weird because unlike most games today with purchasable cosmetics, Oblivion is not online and there's no one to show off to. Oh, I'm sure the NPCs in the Imperial City and those beggars who are desperate for new shoes are very impressed with your purchase. Again, this is so commonplace now that most gamers wouldn't bat an eyelid, but in 2006 it was so bizarre that the horse armour became a laughingstock and a meme. Underneath that, there was a question about price versus value. Bethesda themselves got in on the joke for April Fools in 2009 when they put all of Oblivion's DLC on half price, except the horse armour, which doubled. Brilliant. Number 4. Menu animations. Sonic Origins. Sonic Origins, the recent collection of the Sega mascot's 16-bit adventures, had a lot of troubles on release, and it also had some on the lead-up. Pre-order bonuses are one thing, but Sega lost control of their possible options for Sonic Origins consumers, so much so that they famously had to create a graph to explain that certain features came with one version of the game but not others, and perhaps most importantly, there was no version that had every last bit of content. These missing pieces included cool features like hard mode and unlocking mirror mode straight away, but worry not, because if you bought the Premium Fun or Digital Deluxe editions, you were blessed with character animations in the main menu as a selling point. Yes, that's as pathetic as it sounds. For what it's worth, Sonic Origins 3D menus are really nice, but the fact that they were gated out deserves the derision it got. Fans were bemused and irritated by these decisions and the choices they had to make, so much so that many shrugged their shoulders and either bought the standard version or didn't bother at all. Number 3. Box Art Mega Man. Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Just looking at Street Fighter Cross Tekken's box art Mega Man is enough to make you question why Capcom, why? It's hard to believe that this abomination was designed as a celebration of Mega Man when it was seen as the harbinger of the franchise's doom. Let's rewind. The exciting potential of the crossover of Street Fighter and Tekken was massive, but sadly was marred with a lot of poor decisions. There were gameplay elements and systems that put fans on edge, and the inclusion of on-the-disc DLC was the gross cherry on this foul sundae. Then Box Art Mega Man was revealed. Based on the original Mega Man North American artwork that infamously misrepresents the series, his reappearance came at the start of the series' 25th anniversary. This year was meant to be a big deal for the Blue Bomber, but after his creator left Capcom, the company panicked and wound up cancelling the 3 games that were in production. So fans were hurting, and now this. Some laughed, some cried, some laughed because if they didn't, they would have cried. Not only was this terrible DLC character being added to a game fans already were abandoning, it was the death knell for a once beloved hero. Number 2. Part 4. Nirvana. ASURA'S Wrath. It's a double dose of Capcom's shady DLC practices in the era. Not only was the company upsetting long-standing fans of their most profitable IPs, they also irritated those that invested into their new ideas. ASURA'S Wrath is an often forgotten 2012 hack-and-slash title with a heavy anime aesthetic influence. Largely, the game was reviewed okay, with some fans appreciating its sense of style. However, despite a lack of marketing budget causing it to undersell, it became gaming news when Capcom surprised fans with some pretty appalling DLC. The game game's campaign ended on a sudden cliffhanger for very good reason, because, unknown to fans, part 4 of the story, titled NIRVANA, was coming as DLC 2 months after release. Now, it's one thing to plan and market your game as an episodic story, but selling a $60 title as a complete package and then essentially going, oh, tricked you, now you have to pay $6 more for the end, was met with extreme pushback. The game's devs defended themselves with their viewpoint that waiting for the continuation of the game's story was like waiting for the next episode of a TV show, but that neatly avoided that anime viewers aren't surprised with random requests for more money. It was a shameful choice and one that definitely contributed to ASURA never getting a second go around. And number 1, hair colours, Dead or Alive 6. Microtransactions are true duality. In some instances, like Fortnite and Rocket League, they keep their free-to-play video games alive. In some cases, they can be a prominent nail in a franchise's coffin. Dead or Alive 6 is a quite unremarkable entry in the fighting game series, but it is remembered for how badly it stank of Koei Tecmo desperately trying to pry consumers from their cash. The first of 4 season passes was a stonking $90 and consisted mostly of costumes. To avoid such a ridiculous asking price, players could purchase content individually via the use of premium tickets. One such use for these consumable tickets was customizing characters, including changing the colour of each fighter's hair. It was 1 ticket per hair colour per character, which sounds pretty bad before you add that it wasn't a permanent purchase. $1 to swap colour and then another $1 if you wanted to swap back. Seriously. The controversy and ridicule around this was so bad that Koei Tecmo had to run the entire concept back, refunding their poor players who paid out for tickets. A month later, the company released the game's final update just a year after release, and the game's director quit. It's sad that the series' future is in question, but really, following this hair colour debacle, the publishers only have themselves to blame. And that's the list! Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which of these DLCs did you hate the most? And of course, let us know of any others that you outright rejected. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.